Well, a warm welcome along to our third Euro 2024 preview show, brought to you in conjunction with freesupertips.com, your home for daily football hackers and bet builders. I'm Warren Ashurst, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined once again by Mark Langdon to discuss the final round of group games at Euro 2024. It's been a cracking tournament so far, and the final matches are likely to bring us more entertainment. And we'll start off, Mark, by looking ahead to England's final clash against Slovenia. In terms of the prices, England are around about 4-11 to claim the victory in their final group game on Tuesday evening. The draw 15-4. Slovenia around about 8-1 to claim the victory. Before we get into Tuesday's match, Mark, let's just have a look back briefly at that Denmark game. A lot has been said between then and now in terms of how England performed. What was your overall take on it?
Yeah, I'd struggle to offer kind of a differing opinion really to what everybody else felt about that game. And Racing Post back page headline the next day was Euro trash. It was a really rubbish performance from England. I think the only mitigation I can find actually is two bits. One was the pitch was like shocking, and second, that I hadn't realised initially the roof was shut, and like apparently it was incredibly humid at pitch level. And I know that sort of you're going to get somebody saying, "I'll get the violins out," you know, that they should still be able to work. But that's the only thing I can sort of say in kind of mitigation for it, because it was a performance lacking in quality, but just lacking in energy. Really, it was so lethargic. You know, Kane's been picked out for his kind of lack of movement, but he wasn't the only one. You know, Jude Bellingham, I just can't remember him making one forward run. You know, Saka had the odd kind of sort of moment where he went forward, but it wasn't as good as the Serbian game, or at least the first half of the Serbia game. There's still the issue on the left-hand side with two players that want to come in Trippier and Foden. So it's not the result that's the problem against Denmark. You can draw 1-1 against Denmark. You know, it's one of those things. We've seen other teams not get sort of maximum points. It doesn't mean you can't win the Euros, but I think the performance was really bad. Like the players didn't appear to know like what they were doing. It was muddled. There's been clarity when you can disagree with sort of Gareth Southgate's team selection over the past, I don't know, was it 6 or 7 years, maybe even sort of longer, but you can't, I think, sort of say, oh, you don't know what he's trying to do, because you do, and you might not agree with what he's trying to do, but it's clear what the plan is. I wasn't sure what the plan was against Denmark, and whatever it was, it didn't work.
I mean, I suppose you could also point to the fact that we maybe shouldn't be too surprised, bearing in mind that England seem to nearly always have one performance, at least in the group stages, that leaves the fans feeling a bit flat, and that's kind of the same again.
Yeah, I mean, you only got to go back 3 years to the Scotland game that finished 0-0, and I thought Scotland were probably the better team in that Euros game at Wembley, and it wasn't a good performance from England. And I remember exactly people going, "Got to drop Kane. It's time for Dominic Calvert-Lewin to be brought in." I mean, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I think, scored 14 goals in the 3 seasons since in the Premier League, and Harry Kane's, just finished the top goal scorer in Europe's top league. So, I can understand that, and a point's not a bad result, but everything he's tried so far, Southgate, just hasn't worked. Like Foden on the left, not really working. Not picking another left back, gambling on Luke Shaw, not worked. I mean, he's still not training with the team. We know Alexander-Arnold in midfield. That experiment's likely to come to an end, isn't it? So whatever he's doing, it's not working. And even the substitutions, I don't think have made a big impact really on the 2 games. I mean, Watkins had that one opportunity, didn't he, when he ran beyond the Danish defenders, but barely touched the ball after that. And like the game was screaming out, I thought, for like Anthony Gordon to hold the width on the left-hand side. And the change he made was Eze in for Foden. And Eze's a good player. It's not about Eze, but I mean, he's pretty similar to Foden. He's not going to do anything different on that left-hand side. So, it just feels all muddled at the moment. I do want to just hone in on that left-back situation. Like, they've taken every other Crystal Palace player that was available. I don't know, Mitchell hadn't had a bad season for Palace. I
Yeah.
mean, he's got to be a better option, or even Chilwell. They've got to be better options than sort of one of these centre backs, because you've got Dunk, Gomez, and Konsa probably not going to play in the whole tournament. So I think that one of them maybe not going and bringing a left back, even if you don't think he's as good, it was a mistake, because sure, if he's not going to play against Slovenia, I don't see how he can be fit for sort of the next couple of matches at least.
It would appear as though changes, like you say, Mark, are going to be likely against Slovenia. In terms of the main target for Gareth Southgate now, obviously it's winning the group, and just how important will that be for them?
Yeah, I think winning the group will be important, because you do want to sort of get into that, what looks like being the kind of softer half of the draw, which is and England have done very well at sort of getting into the softer half of the knockout draws in tournaments under Southgate. But Portugal have won their group, Spain have won their groups. We know they're in the top half. We're speaking before Germany against Switzerland, but assuming Germany finish top spot as well, that means those three teams are all going to be in the top half. France haven't secured their spot in the bottom half yet either, so that they might even end up in there if they don't win the group. So I do think it's important England win the group. I think it's just as important that they put in a performance that actually sort of not only the fans can believe in, but the players can believe in, because there were a lot of downbeat press conferences after that second match. I mean, they can clearly see things are not going well.
Yeah, and it comes to a point where it's almost like sometimes people will scream for the players to make the changes themselves on the pitch if they see that things aren't going well at the moment. And I just wonder whether they might be slightly tempted to do that against Slovenia. We'll look at, of course, the other games in England's group a little bit later on. But Mark, we'll look at the best bet now for this clash. How do you see England-Slovenia working out?
Yeah, I'm going to go for Declan Rice to score at 9-1. I think it's difficult to trust England after two sort of turgid performances, really, or at least 1.5 sort of turgid performances. But I think backing Rice to score might make sense, because if they do rejig the midfield, I think that will be to the benefit of Rice, who doesn't look comfortable alongside Alexander-Arnold, and that's because Alexander-Arnold, I don't think, truly understands the position. So Rice did have a shot on target against Denmark as well, and I think if they do make sort of those midfield tinkerings, it might enable him to get forward like he does for Arsenal. He scored 7 goals this season for them. And the other point was that Slovenia, I thought they looked shaky at set pieces against Denmark, and then conceded from one against Serbia. So in a game where there's not much value, I think Declan Rice to score at 9-1, and then for the bet builder, Warren, in that game, I'm going to stick with the Declan Rice theme. I'm going to go for England to win the game. Declan Rice to have a shot on target. Like I said, he had a shot on target against the Danes. And then the final act in the bet builder is going to be Serin of Slovenia to be booked. If you have a look, he's made 9 fouls so far in this in the Euros after just 2 matches. He hasn't been booked yet, but you can't keep on making those minor misdemeanors and get away with it. I mean, Rodri does, but nobody else is able to get away with it. And so I think that's just purely because of the fact Slovenia play 4-4-2, and what that means is that they're a man sort of light in midfield quite often. And I mean, Serin is just fouling to kind of, they try to press high, he beat the press, and then he doesn't foul. So hopefully he can be carded. So that's another option for the game.
So that's the bet builder. What price are we looking at around there, Mark?
Yeah, I think it's about 16-1 for those 3 outcomes. So for Rice to have a shot on target, Serin to be carded, and England to win the game.
Okay, well, that's Mark's best bet and bet builder for the England-Slovenia game. Just to remind you, that's an 8 p.m. kickoff on Tuesday evening. Next, we'll go through the remainder of the games, starting with Scotland's must-win clash against Hungary. Well, we start the roundup of the final group games on Sunday evening. The Group A encounters, of course, kick off at the same time, 8 p.m. And we can't start anywhere else other than with the Scotland clash against Hungary. Much better performance against Switzerland, Mark. Can't help but thinking that they might have missed a chance there, though, because with the opportunities they had towards the end of the game, that could have been 3 points rather than 1.
Yeah, it could have. I mean, they might have lost it though as well, and then maybe this game doesn't even matter at all. So I understand sort of the dilemma there of not wanting to push too hard to get 3 points, because if they would have lost, the tournament would have felt like it was over. So they've taken it to the final game. The target was always 4 points. I mean, Steve Clark spoke about that. I think it's hard to say, isn't it? Well, where are you going to get the draw and win out of the Switzerland and Hungary game? I think the Switzerland game on paper was the more difficult. I know there were a lot of people hyping up Hungary before the tournament started, but if you had a look at kind of the odds and the I think the feeling maybe outside of this idea that Hungary were dark horses, it was that Switzerland was the harder of those two games, with Germany, obviously the very I was going to say very difficult. I mean, it turned into more than that for them. But so this is, I think, been the plan, really. They wouldn't have expected to have lost quite so heavily against Germany, but I think it would have been draw against Switzerland, beat Hungary. And so they have given themselves an opportunity to qualify. I think the fact that they need to win helps in some ways, because at least from a clarity point of view, you know what you've got to do, and there won't be this kind of, well, if we play for a point, it might be enough. They realistically know they need to win the game, and it's there for them, isn't it? I mean, Hungary have lost both of their games, so you can't ask for much more, really. Scotland have, I think, had some great teams, or certainly great players down the years, and some outstanding managers. The fact that they've never managed to make it to a knockout stage, I think, is shocking, really, given that quality. And so, it's all there for this group of players to make history and to qualify the team. But I still don't think it's going to be an easy game against Hungary.
No. Scotland 31-20 to claim the victory against the Hungarians. The draw around about 14-5, and Hungary 6-4. Like you say, Mark, Hungary, their chances are almost gone. I mean, a victory would maybe give them a slim outside chance. Are Scotland going to be able to do it? I mean, they're going to have to try and do it without Kieran Tierney as well, who will be a massive miss.
Yeah, I think, I think that Tierney loss is a big one. I'm going to go for Hungary to win the game. I just think that sort of do or die clash for both teams. So the draw, I mean, you can never entirely rule out an outcome, but it feels unlikely that it will be a draw. And I do think that Steve Clark is running out of defensive options. And also Hungary, second half against Switzerland and for large chunks against Germany, I think they showed that they are a dangerous side. Szoboszlai and Saloy, playing just off the striker. I mean, had they not had that sort of really bad opening 30 minutes, they might have got something against Switzerland. They lost the game there before it had sort of almost started, and once they grew into the game, they looked a bigger threat. I don't actually think that Scotland it's really difficult to fancy them to win games just because of their lack of goals. I just look at the Hungary team and I see more forward options, so I'm going to go for them to win. But it might, as you say, it might mean that neither team qualifies.
Yeah, the other game, of course, in the group, sees Switzerland against Germany kicking off at the same time. The Swiss are around about 17-4 to win the clash. Draw is around about 27-10, and Germany 7-10. Germany, as you say, Mark, already qualified. Can you see them making a number of changes for this game?
I think they'll make a few, but I don't expect it to be, we'll get onto like the Spain and Portugal games later on. And I expect them to just make wholesale changes, sort of, League Cup style teams. I don't think it'll be like that from Germany. He might decide to rotate a couple of players out, but no, I think that they'll want to win the group, sort of carry on that feeling of goodwill that they're trying to build with the supporters. And seen from sort of England, one bad performance and it feels like everybody sort of turns on the team. Yeah. So I don't think that they'll want to do that. From Switzerland's point of view, I think for them, just don't get hammered. And you can go through in second spot. So that's why I'm sort of playing for this one, for Germany to win by 1 goal. So Germany don't need to do much more than win. I could see this game fizzling out if Germany were kind of, say, winning with 30 minutes to go, a lot of substitutions, Switzerland happy to lose by 1 goal. It sort of, it's barring a kind of a heavy sort of turnaround in goal difference in the Scotland game, a sort of a low scoring defeat does for them in second spot. So yeah, I can sort of just see Germany edging it. I won't be watching that game, that's for sure.
Moving on to Group B, who they'll complete their group with the final matches on Monday evening, 8 p.m. kickoffs for both of these 2 games as well. We'll start off with Croatia against Italy, Mark. How to know what to make of the defending champions so far? I thought they were really comfortably beaten by Spain despite the scoreline.
Oh yeah, I mean, that if that would have finished 3 or 4-0, they would have had no complaints. Italy, I thought they were okay against Albania. Looked neat and tidy in that first half. Got worse as the game went on. I'm going to go for an upset here. I'm going to go for a Croatia win. I just think that they're a big price for a team that you talk about never writing off the Germans, never write off Croatia. The amount of times they've come back from difficult situations, and you feel like they're going out, whether that's a knockout game or even in the groups, and they find a way. And I think in terms of how they played, I thought even though they lost 3-0 and Italy lost 1-0, I thought they played better against Spain than what Italy did. And then against Albania, didn't start well against Albania, though nor did Italy. But again, they were in exactly the same position against Italy. With Albania, they won. They were winning 2-1, and where Albania missed that chance in the sort of last minute against Italy, they scored it against Croatia. So I just think it's been fine sort of margins really for Croatia in terms of missing out. I just don't see really anything between them and Italy so far in this tournament. They were done by that sucker punch against Albania, but Italy lack fire. They really lack firepower. I think that they're vulnerable favourites. Croatia need to win. Italy might even be able to go through by doing sort of nothing really and just losing a low-scoring sort of game. I'm not saying that they'll do that and sort of play for a low-scoring defeat, but it's really clear what Croatia need to do. And I just think that they've got enough talent in that team to upset the odds.
People kept telling me before the tournament, Mark, that Italy were a changed team, that they had much more going forward. I just don't see that at the moment in terms of their attacking threat.
No, I think they've got the intention to do that under Spalletti, the coach. I just don't think they've got the players at the moment to carry it off.
Yeah, Croatia 11-5 to cause a bit of an upset and beat Italy, the defending champions. A draw around 11-5, Italy 13-10. The other game, of course, in the group sees one of the surprise packages so far. Albania take on a Spain side who look like serious contenders for the title. Albania as big as 6-1 to win this game. The draw 15-4, Spain around 9-20. Spain, you've already alluded to it, Mark, may well make some changes for this game.
Yeah, I think that they'll make wholesale changes. If anybody sort of stays in, I'd be surprised, really. There's no need to. They've won the group. They're playing with fluency. They haven't got to sort of find their rhythm or anything like that. So I expect many changes. You want to keep all of the squad players happy and sort of part of, feel like they're part of the team. The one player I was looking at, so this is a really sort of hard betting heat, I think, until you know what the sort of team situation is. I'm a big fan of Dani Olmo. He's 8-1 to score first. He does like a shot, particularly from distance. So maybe he'll play in that forward line for Spain. And he's not going to get in that starting team with the way that the young guns are playing in the wide positions for Spain. So he knows his position in the kind of squad at the moment. But I think he's a quality player, so I'm going to go for him.
Just a quick word on Spain, Mark, before we move into the next group. You mentioned it after the first round of matches, how impressive they were. Is it fair to suggest that they might now be outright favourites to win the tournament?
Well, I mean, they've certainly been the best team, I think, after 2 games. It is only 2 games, and there's many sort of, I think, more sort of fixtures that they'll have to negotiate. Whether they've got the firepower to win a knockout tie, that would be my concern, just because of the amount of chances that they miss. This is not something that's happened just in this tournament. It's been for a number of tournaments where they just haven't got that sort of killer instinct in front of goal. looks like they're going to end up in the worst half of the draw as well. At the moment, on paper, looks like a quarter-final with Germany, potentially a semi-final with Portugal. So they might be the best team, but it doesn't mean that they'll win. But definitely being the best team so far.
One of the other teams who were strongly fancied, of course, prior to the tournament of France, and they play their final group game on Tuesday at 5 p.m. UK time when they take on Poland. France around 2-7, the draw 19-4. Poland as big as 9-1. Poland, of course, have already crashed out at this stage. France have not necessarily been as impressive as many people would have imagined, Mark. What have you made of them today?
Yeah, scored fewer goals than Scotland so far in the tournament. I've not been impressed. I think had they not got this record of reaching 3 of the last 4 finals, if you just kind of were judging them purely on what you've seen over these 2 games, I don't think you'd be going, oh, wow, let's watch out for this French team. It's just because this is kind of the way that they play. Philippe Auclair, the French journalist, heard him on the Guardian podcast the other day say that most teams manage matches, France manage tournaments. And I thought that was a fair assessment, that they're kind of just feeling their way. They feel like they're going to be here until the final. And so, they're just managing it step by step. But I always want to see more from France. I just feel like that they're, held back slightly by Deschamps. But for a controversial disallowed goal, they might have lost to Netherlands. They also had their chances to win, but I've not been that impressed with them. They've given themselves a bit of work to do now in terms of winning the group, and you do want to win the group, I think, and end up in that bottom half of the draw in terms of going forward. So I'm going to go for France minus 1.5 goals in this game, because I just feel like they kind of, they not only need to win this game, they might need to win it by a couple of goals, depending on what happens in the other game. It's very tight in the group. So Poland, I think the fact that they're out now, not expecting too much from them. I think they've been okay, Poland, but they've given up a lot of chances to Austria and Netherlands, and I'd expect France to take advantage.
You say Netherlands and Austria are the other 2 in the group, and one of these 2 teams could go out, and actually they've played some really good football so far and could be unlucky.
Yeah, I mean, it would be really disappointing if Austria went out. Netherlands are on 4 points, so it should be okay. Austria only got 3 at the moment. I don't think that they'll play defensively, though, like thinking a point's enough. Just the way that they play, they're so open. I love watching them. They've been the kind of dark horse so far that you go, if there is to be a shock winner, it probably is Austria. I thought both teams to score was the way to go. Austria's so open. There were 30 shots in their game against Poland. There were 12 on target. And this is a game actually where Holland on the break might be able to make it pay as well. They were, I felt, wore down by Poland at times in that opening game, and even France didn't let them do too much. So yeah, I'm going to go for both teams to score.
Netherlands, by the way, in the outright betting for the match 6-5, the draw 5-2, and Austria 13-5. We've already talked, of course, about England's clash with Slovenia on Tuesday, but the other game in that group is Denmark against Serbia. The Danes are around about 6-5, the draw 5-2, and Serbia 11-5. Both of these 2 teams, Mark, can maybe point at factors earlier in the tournament to say, oh, we were a little bit unlucky maybe there, but who's going to come out on top on Tuesday?
I'm going to go for Denmark to win. Serbia, a funny old team, Serbia. I mean, I think it feels like a game that both need to win, doesn't it? Because Denmark have got 2 points so far. Serbia have got 1. They're a funny old team, Serbia, because there's always a lot of hype around their strikers, and has been for a few tournaments. And they have got Mitrovic, and they've got Vlahovic, and if they Tadic and Luka Jovic, and a lot of forward players. But I can't ever remember seeing them play well as a team. Like I just every time they turn up, I just expect more from them, and they don't really deliver. Lucky to get that sort of last gasp goal against Slovenia that kept them in the tournament, essentially, what day was it now? Thursday afternoon. I just thought Denmark, solid enough side. I don't think they're brilliant, but they played reasonably well against England. And yeah, I thought that they were fair enough at odds against to win this game.
Yeah, it seems like a better balance to Denmark than to Serbia, I think, overall. Wednesday's two matches at 5 p.m. see Ukraine against Belgium and Slovakia take on Romania. Ukraine around about 100 to 30 to beat Belgium. It's a similar price for the draw. Belgium 7 to 10. After that opening game shock mark for Belgium, they bounced back with a win. Are we looking at them now as maybe a bit more of the real deal than we thought originally?
No, they've kind of played how I expected them to. They've got quality in the final third, but against Slovakia, they gave up opportunities, and even Romania had their moments, didn't they? And I don't think that they're two sort of good sides, really. So, I remain to be convinced by Belgium defensively. I have no problems with them in the final third. I think they're a good, a good side. For this game, I was looking at both teams to score. I mean, this group's fascinating, isn't it? All the teams are on 3 points, and a goal in one of the game might change the attitude of what sort of other teams need to do in it. So it feels a tricky one to predict and sort of in play. You're really going to have your wits about you, I think, to get involved in it. But from this point of view, I thought both, as we sort of stand here now, I thought both teams to score was the way to go. Ukraine, because of their goal difference and the fact that they'll feel like Slovakia versus Romania might play out in a mutually beneficial draw, they'll assume they need to win that game, I think, against Belgium. So showed much more attacking intent against Slovakia in the second half, made some changes, and it seemed to work for them. And Belgium, I just don't think they can play any other way than sort of on the front foot and go for it. So yeah, I think this might be the better of the two games. We'll get to that Slovakia-Romania one now, but I'm going to go for both teams to score in the Ukraine-Belgium game.
I remember you saying at the start of the tournament, you get some games where you just think that there's no way you would ordinarily watch these games. If it was outside of tournament football, I would class Slovakia and Romania in that sort of section. But, both of these two teams have surprised and frustrated in equal measure so far. Slovakia are 11 to 5 to win the final group game. The draw around about 11 to 10. Romania 13 to 5. As you say, Mark, this could be cagey and it could be a difficult one to call.
Yeah, I mean, you might get what was that game? West Germany. West Germany,
Austria.
Yeah, it was 82, and it knocked Algeria out. There was an early goal for West Germany, and then no, there wasn't another moment of action in the game. So, a draw probably suits both teams. They'll know. I would have thought as well by 5 o'clock on Wednesday whether 4 points is enough, whether their goal difference is in the right place. I'm not going to say you should back the draw, but if it's sort of 0-0 after 60 minutes, there might not be much attacking going on for the last 30. I'm going to go for Slovakia draw, no bet. That way you get your money back if it does finish in a draw. But looked at the two teams, watched both of their matches so far. I feel like Slovakia have played better than Romania. Romania, that 3-0, I mentioned it in the last show that we did. I didn't think that 3-0 was fair against Ukraine. They just scored some unbelievable goals and two goalkeeping errors as well that played its part in that game. Slovakia just looked like a really almost like a club side, I think, the way that they play. The midfield are sort of Serie A based. They got pace and quality up front. This kind of desire to keep going forward at all sort of moments. Now, that might not be the way to play this particular game. But, yeah, with Lobotka in midfield, they've got like the standout player on either team. So if there is to be a winner, I think it'll be Slovakia. But don't be surprised if this finishes 0-0.
And the final round of group games will take place on Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Georgia against Portugal and the Czech Republic against Turkey kicking off at the same time. Mark, you really flagged up Portugal before the tournament, and so far so good.
Yeah, I mean, they got the job done against Czech Republic. I think that they deserve to win, even if it came late. Helping hand with the second Turkish sort of that own goal for the second goal. But I actually felt like their play was good from Portugal. You mentioned it earlier about balance, and I think it's so important in international football to have balance. And Portugal appear to have that all over the pitch. Pepe 41, but absolutely masterful performance against Turkey. A lot of quality in midfield. And when Ronaldo passed to Bruno Fernandes, I just couldn't believe he did that. And the fact that he did, I think bodes really well for the tournament. Ronaldo was my biggest concern for Portugal. Look, he's not been outstanding. He's not the same Ronaldo, even 2 or 3 years ago, never mind sort of 10 years ago. But he's not a liability. He's still able to perform. He's playing at a high level. He's fully connected to this team. It's not about Ronaldo. It is about Portugal. And all sort of goes well. For this game, however, I'm assuming that Roberto Martinez just changes up the entire side. And while they've got a lot of depth to their team, Portugal, you do have to question the rhythm and sort of just the patterns of play and stuff like that. And I thought that Georgia, around about 7-1, might be able to give punters a run for their money. They're, without being too patronising, been very plucky so far. They like to go forward. They were battered on the stats by Czech Republic, but they still created chances in that game. And if Portugal kind of not motivated and Georgia are absolutely on it, I just thought 7-1. I was expecting a shorter price. I mean, Albania are a shorter price to beat Spain, and I think Georgia have shown just as much, maybe even more than what Albania have. And I'd probably say that Spain's reserves would be at least as good as Portugal's reserves at this stage. We don't quite know what the teams are going to be, but to me, the Georgia price just stood out as being worth a punt, really.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. And those who were cheering on the underdog would have had their heads in their hands in the final seconds of that game between Georgia and Czech Republic, because you just felt for him, one-on-one with a goalkeeper to lift it over the top of the crossbar. Would have been painful to watch. But Georgia, as Mark said, a big price, around about 13-2 to beat Portugal. The draw 4-1. Portugal as short as 2-5. The other game in that group, Czech Republic against Turkey. I have to say, I think Turkey are one of the most unpredictable football teams I've ever seen. I mean, going forward, sublime at times, but at the back, Mark, as well, absolutely all over the place.
Yeah, that is true. But I'm going to go. I'm going to go with Turkey for this game. The Czech Republic need to win. Clearly need to win. I don't think that suits them. They don't look like a team that sort of wants to play to win. Schick went off injured, didn't he, in the game yesterday? So remains to be seen if he's fully fit. And Turkey, I felt were good against Georgia. Created many chances against Portugal. They started okay, but then the second goal really did for them, and it was a shocker of an own goal to concede, and then the game's really up as far as that's concerned. But they might enjoy this on the counter attack, because Czechs have got to go forward. Turkey will feel like a point's enough, given that they've already beaten Georgia. But as you referenced there, they don't look like the sort of team that will play for a point in any game. So a lot of young players that want to sort of, I suppose, express themselves, a coach that wants to play forwards. Yeah, and I thought that Turkey were overpriced to win this game.
Yeah, and certainly for entertainment value, Turkey have been fantastic in this tournament to date. They're around about 9-5 to claim the victory. Czech Republic 6-4, the draw around about 12-5. That wraps up then our look at the individual final group games at Euro 2024. We're going to have a look at Mark's Accumulator and Nap selections now for round 3. We'll start off with the Accumulator, Mark.
Yeah, let's go for both teams to score treble. It's unlucky. Diaka got done by that Albanian goal in injury time in the second round of the group stage game, so that was slightly annoying. But both teams to score treble this time around. I think we referenced, didn't we, in the last show, that there'd be statistically a lot of draws in the second round of group stage games, and that came in a treat. In the third round of group stage games, usually more goals. So let's hope for that. Croatia against Italy. Croatia need to win. I'm not sure if they need to win, whether that's going to leave them too exposed defensively. I mean, they've already conceded 5 goals in the tournament. So, Croatia and Italy both seem to score. Netherlands against Austria. We've seen from Austria already that they just want to play on the front foot. The high press could leave themselves with too much to do defensively. But I've really enjoyed watching them play and see goals at both ends. And then finally, Ukraine against Belgium. Because of Ukraine's goal difference, fair chance, they'll need to win, given that the other game in that group is almost odds on to be a draw. So the game state might mean they need to chase it against Belgium, and Belgium are much better going forward than they are defensively. So both teams to score: Croatia, Netherlands, and Ukraine.
That is Mark's accumulator selection. What about the Nap then, Mark, for this final round of group games?
Yeah, it's always tricky, I think, the final round of group stage games. But I'm going to go for France, -1.5 on the handicap. So France to win by 2 goals or more. I just don't think they're going to want to end up in the same half of the draw as Spain, Portugal, and possibly Germany. So very important that they win the game, win the group. And to win the group, they might need to put on a couple of goals against a Polish team that's already out of the tournament. And yeah, if France do get ahead, I just wonder if the Polish heads might drop. And so even if Mbappe doesn't start, there should be enough in that French team to get the job done and get it done convincingly.
Yeah, I think it will be a dramatic and entertaining final round of group games at Euro 2024. Thanks to Mark for joining us today to run through his selections for those final matches. Don't forget, of course, to like, subscribe and comment. And you should also check out as well the latest episode of Sweet Spot on Tuesday for all your golf betting for the week ahead. But we'll be back on Thursday to discuss the round of 16. So enjoy your football and please remember to gamble responsibly.